All right, well, we're going to pivot now from this morning's first presentation to hear from the dog owners, dog guardians, dog friends, companions. And we're going to ask the public safety rep, I guess, I'm not sure which, to chime in. And is that you, Alan? All right. And do a little framing.
Yes, we have both myself and Captain Breed here.
Great, perfect. So just a little bit of framing on how the district perceives and operates, the procedures and policies that the district operates from with respect to dogs and dog guardians. And then we have presentations from Mary Barnsdale, Kathy Roth, and Emily Schultz to share with you. I'm going to ask all of that to happen within 30 to 40 minutes, and so we can have a good group discussion and Q&A. So Captain Breed or Detective Love, whoever's starting, go ahead.
Thanks. So I don't really have a drawn out presentation about dogs in the parks, but I did see that Sean actually put the information in the chat about dog owner responsibilities. We do allow dogs off leash in certain parks and in certain areas, but generally on paved trails, they're required to be on leash. And I did hear the concern about bringing dogs for the persons with disabilities of dogs essentially wandering, which is something that we are continuing to make sure that people only have a 6-foot leash and it doesn't go across the trails and things like that. So we welcome dogs in the parks, and we have many areas where they are allowed off leash, but we do have certain areas where leashes are required and that those areas are enforced. And those are generally developed areas like picnic tables and things like that, where they're required to be on leash. Even in the off leash areas, dog owners have responsibilities. So dogs out of control, and I think that was the term I heard earlier today, is not allowed. Dogs need to be under voice control and under the control of the owners. And I know that we work continually with our park users and responsibilities who over dogs to make sure that that is understood, but also that we are working to make sure that we have areas appropriate for dogs and that they have access to our parks as people do bring their dogs to the park. So that's kind of the public safety portion of it. And if there's any specific trails or anything like that, we can absolutely answer that. The other aspect that I will answer is that we do have a commercial dog walking program that operates in the parks, and it is permitted. So people that wish to operate a business in the parks of commercially walking dogs as professional dog walkers, we have a process for that. They also have certain rules, and they have even more restrictive areas where they can go. And that is because they're generally walking up to 6 dogs. So, and that there is a maximum of 6. So the commercial dog walkers have certain parks, and that information is listed on the website of where they can go and where it's appropriate. And then as far as communicating with them, that falls to either myself or a lieutenant to kind of have meetings with them on a regular basis. We didn't have one last year due to COVID, but we've had them for the past few years, and kind of a refresher of these are the rules. Make sure everybody is following them, and if they don't know, and just doing some education. So that is the commercial dog walking aspect. And with that, I will offer any questions.
Great. Yeah, I think we have a moment to, if there's any questions of the district on how things operate, take a few of those, and then we can launch into our presentation. So
I have a quick question about the 6-foot rule. And you don't have to answer this at all now, but I just wanted to put it out there because I think we might need to look at it. There's been a big discussion about retractables, and the district allows a 25-foot retractable.
I was following those posts on PIDO.
Yeah. Maybe we should look at that again, because I could easily see somebody having that stretch across a wheelchair or whatever.
And that is one thing that I will say, that as a retractable leash, as I'm as I continue to get more experienced in age, I won't say that I'm getting older because I just don't believe that. But as my eyes start to go, I start to not be able to see that line, especially as it gets dusk or early dawn. So I thank you for bringing that up, Mary. And it is something that we've had discussions, and I am monitoring that conversation on social media.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on into our presentations. If other things come up, I think the public safety folks will stick around for the remainder of the meeting. So if something comes up that they can address, great. But let's turn it over. Mary and Kathy and Emily, I think this is your portion of the agenda to talk about perspectives on what it's like to take dogs into the parks.
So thank you all actually, thank you for two things: for letting us share our perspective, but also for letting us be part of this process, because it's been very interesting what we've learned. And it's been kind of humbling, all the expertise that everyone else has. So many thanks to everybody. I'm going to walk you quickly through what our world is. And we actually collaborate really well with the East Bay Regional Park District. I think this is Officer Tom Walsh and I think this may be Guinness, who's now retired to Ardenwood. We asked the pups and ponies to come to Point Isabel to get dogs and kids and people more used to horses, and it was very well received. We'd love to keep doing that. This is an example of a park cleanup. We do a lot of weeding and mulching. And actually, I first met Bonnie at the Albany Beach cleanup and sand globe workshop. This is the famous Captain Love, meeting with Bruce Kern and the professional dog walkers. Bruce was the head of the pack at that time. Adela was very involved in that too. And we all worked for 2 years on a document which captured the history of dog walking in the parks, and came up with a status report and had some very constructive suggestions for how to improve the experience for people with dogs and people who don't have dogs. This little dog on the left, Hugsy, this is an example of training and education. We're very committed to training, education, communication. And every year, Point Isabel Dog Owners hosts a canine good citizen test. Hugsy here has just passed it. He got his official certificate and his PIDO, Point Isabel Dog Owners bandana. This slide is the title slide for a presentation that Carol Johnson, the head of the Regional Parks Foundation, and I made to the PAC about 2 or 3 years ago. Basically, we're brainstorming ways we can make the whole park user experience better, and focusing on dogs and education and community. And out of that, quite a few things came out of it, but part of it, one of the things that came out was this Be a Pup Pro, which, as I understand it, has been very successful at East Bay Regional Parks. This may be a surprise to some people, but dog advocates care really deeply about the parks and the environment. We're not just dog walkers. We participate in many different ways. And one of the interesting, I'm sorry, this is not advancing for some reason. Aha, here we are. I just wanted to give you a kind of a glitzy example of that. It was actually dog walkers who brought East Bay Regional Park District the first big beach microplastics cleanup. This was something, we got a grant from the Alameda County-wide Clean Water Program, and we brought 110 volunteers to Albany Beach. We used these special static charge screens that you can see in this visual here. As they're used, the screens develop a charge and an electric charge, and tiny microplastics and polystyrene stick to them so that you can then take that stuff away from the beach. Otherwise, you can clean the beach in a way you could never do by picking through the sand, trying to pick up little bits of plastics. And actually, the Park District has now bought about 6 of those screens. And I trained the park supervision and naturalists at Crab Cove on how to use them. They're not all at Crab Cove. We learned at Crab Cove. This seems like a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to say it's just an example of how we can all work together for the parks by getting everybody on the same page. This was the mission that Carol and I came up with. And I think it really works for this trail users working group too. I think we're all about a culture that encourages good trail manners and responsibility, even better compliance than we have, and tolerance and understanding among the different user groups. That said, I know the dogs can be controversial, so I just want to share some definitions with you because I think some of these things aren't that well understood. We often hear that off-leash dogs devastate wildlife and the environment. But study after peer-reviewed study has shown that actually that's not what the studies are about. They're about feral and free roaming dogs. Feral dogs are essentially wild. They live in packs. The top photo here is dogs in Israel. You have dogs in Mongolia, feral dogs who are attacking endangered antelope. We don't have feral dogs in the East Bay. Free roaming dogs are dogs that hang around in villages. They're loose and unsupervised. They live in a village by the national forest in Brazil. They spend the day doing dog knows what. And then they come home to the villages at night. We don't have that either. We don't have free roaming dogs who pillage in Tilden Park and then come back to their multi-million-dollar villages on Wildcat Canyon Road. What we have are off-leash dogs. They're companion animals. They're in the parks for a limited amount of time with their people, almost 99%, or maybe 99% of the time on trails. That said, I know there are occasionally issues with some off-leash dogs. There are 25 million park user visits to the parks, East Bay Regional Parks, every year. 25 million, you're going to occasionally have something that nobody likes, but basically it's working pretty well. So why is dog walking important? It's important to us, of course, but why is it important to the community? Well, there's a really low barrier to entry, by which we mean you don't have to buy a bike or a boat or a bow. You just take your companion animal and a leash and you go to the parks. This is actually how many people learn to enjoy the parks first, and then hopefully become big advocates for the parks. It's very egalitarian, all ages, races, incomes, abilities. We actually kind of call it a melting pot. Obviously, there are physical and mental health benefits, healthy parks, healthy people. And it's just what many park users actually want to do. We have been told sometimes, not by the park district, but we have been told sometimes that people with dogs can go anywhere they want to in the parks. They just have to leave their dogs at home. And we submit that that's maybe not very constructive. It gets in a little bit into the issue of parks versus preserves, which is something that Kathy will talk about in a moment. You may not realize that dog walking advocates actually prefer trails. We don't want to bushwhack across the pristine parklands. 4 of the things on this slide have actually killed dogs in the East Bay Regional Park District. The ticks and the poison oak have made us want to die. Basically, dog walking people just want what everybody else wants. We want a safe, fulfilling, restorative time in nature that's not too far from our homes. We don't want to drive for 3 hours, 2 hours, sometimes not even 1 hour. Which brings us back, of course, to the access issue and having trails where people are. And this is my final slide. We just think trails are a good thing. We think the studies that have been done on off-leash dogs show that they're on the trails 99% of the time and don't support the hyperbole we've sometimes heard about the devastation. We think that we should be building out new trails to lessen crowding and give people more access, but it's really good for wildlife and habitat too. We want to channel park users peacefully, happily together, sharing space in narrow areas through the parks. Studies have shown that wildlife tends to pull back from trails, not permanently, temporarily. When wildlife is aware of use of trails, they pull back, I think it's something like 200 feet on either side. That's good. That's a smart thing for wildlife to do. It doesn't mean the wildlife has gone away to die. They pull back, they accommodate, we accommodate. It can work for everybody. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Kathy Roth, who's going to tell us where the opportunities may be in the future. Thank you. And I'm stopping my share.
Have you made it so I can share my screen now?
Just one moment and I'll get that set up. Okay, you should be able to now, Kathy.
Okay, you see that? Are you able to see my
Yes,
screen?
we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So we would like to continue to walk with our dogs in the East Bay Regional Parks. And here's just some pictures of some people enjoying the parks with their dogs. When this committee was started, I wanted to be on it because I'm an advocate for dog walking as recreation. But I'm not only a dog walker, I care deeply about the environment and conservation and have been a member of the Sierra Club for 38 years. I volunteer doing native plant restoration and fire abatement. And this is just a picture of a project on Marsh Creek to eradicate arundo grass, which is a terrible invasive grass. And I am just in that picture for scale. So I'd like to show the areas in the East Bay Regional Parks that are open to dog walking and those that are not. But first, let's just take a minute to look at the EBRPD in the context of the other protected open spaces in the East Bay and what their policies are. I think we can strike a balance with both recreation and resource protection. So here's the East Bay. And this is in the period from around World War II to around prior to 1971. You had the beginnings of the East Bay parks in this bright green. You had some water districts in this blue-green color, and Mount Diablo State Park, which was smaller at that time, in yellow. And so this shows the progression to the present. You know, I think we can really give credit to the people who came before who had the foresight to preserve some of these lands. So what are we looking at here? So the bright green is the East Bay Regional Parks that are currently open. And the orange is East Bay Park lands that are in the land bank. Again, the blue-green is water districts. And you have got their Walnut Creek open space in this kind of pink, Save Mount Diablo in this kind of pencil eraser color, and John Muir Land Trust in purple. And over here you have this Marsh Creek State Park, which is really very little known. It was not open even before COVID. So as far as the water districts are really kind of interesting. So East Bay Mud has all this land here. And the Contra Costa Water District has Los Vaqueros over here, which is really rich in both natural resources and cultural resources. And they also own Walnut Creek that runs from Walnut Creek north to the bay, where it empties into the bay to the north. And that was channelized years ago by the Army Corps of Engineers. And the water district allowed the riparian vegetation to grow back. And there's actually quite a lot of wildlife in there. The Army Corps of Engineers took that back from, didn't like what the water district was letting happen. And they took it back. And the water district took it back from the Army Corps of Engineers. And that's actually the first time in the country that an agency has reclaimed land from the Army Corps. Down here, San Francisco has a huge amount of land down by Sunol. They even have a piece of the, I guess this is the Fremont Hills, where the giant pipes come out of the ground from Hetch Hetchy. And some of this is a quarry and some other sort of semi-industrial uses, but most of it is pretty unspoiled. And there's even an elk herd there. So I think with all these tens of thousands of acres, that allowing dogs in park, part of it isn't excessive. So here we just have some happy dogs in the park. And so going to this simpler map, this is the East Bay Regional Park District's own map. You got the open parks in kind of a dark green, the land bank areas in orange, and the lighter color green is the other open spaces. So I went and colored this according to whether dogs are allowed or not. And you've got green for dogs that are allowed off leash in the undeveloped areas, yellow for allowed on leash, and red means no dogs or no dogs on trails. So you have this really large red area over here, which is amalgamation of several contiguous agencies. You've got the Los Vaqueros, you've got East Bay Regional Park District, Round Valley and Vasco Caves, and you've got this Marsh Creek State Park. This is Mount Diablo State Park. No dogs are allowed on trails in state parks or nearly all state parks. And the East Bay Mud, they're generally closed to the public, but they do have a nice but limited trail system that you can access by permit only. And just a couple of those trails allow dog on leash. This down here is Don Edwards National Seashore or Wildlife Area. And it has, I think there's one or two trails that allow dogs on leash. So the East Bay parks themselves, the open parks, the East Bay parks themselves are open to dogs in the undeveloped areas. The land banks, it's undecided. And you have all this nice Walnut Creek open space that allows dogs off leash. You've got some John Muir Land Trust that allows dogs off leash. Save Mount Diablo does not open their land to the public except for guided tours and volunteer activities. And I think they're planning a nature center, but no dogs. The San Francisco Water District's attitude towards any kind of recreation is don't even think about it. And I just put this in for interest. This is this giant N3 ranch that is for sale. It's very unspoiled. It's the headwater of Alameda Creek and to the waters of Del Val. And it's not clear with what's happening with it. And you've got this Empire Mines Sand Creek area, which a lot of activity as far as trying to protect it and having initiatives. And I stood in front of the Walmart in Antioch in 90-degree heat trying to collect signatures for that. Roddy Ranch is over here. And I didn't go to I usually go to planning meetings. I didn't go because it's vernal pools. And I don't think dogs belong in vernal pools, but I really hope that the remainder of Roddy Ranch would be open to dogs. So where is all this leading? I think the point is that there's much open space in the East Bay with various degrees of protection. Much of it is closed to any kind of recreation. And I just don't think dogs are the major threat to conservation. So this summarizes some acreages. This is mostly in here because I'll put it so it can go into the website. But the total East Bay Regional Parks acreage is about 122,000, and all this other open space is about 114,000, and that's about 367 square miles. And you may, if you go look at this, you really may find some inaccuracies. I try to make it every bit as accurate as possible, but it was cobbled together from different sources, and don't use the maps for navigation. So where are dogs not allowed in the East Bay parks? Round Valley, Vasco Caves, the Tilden Nature Area, Huckleberry, the Ohlone Wilderness, and several areas of small specialty parks. Dogs are allowed only on leash in Brushy Peak, the Stream Trail section of Redwood, Miller Knox, and most of the parks fronting on the Bay of the River, except Point Isabel and Point Pinole. So these people are using the parks with their dogs. So what I really wanted to talk about was the new acquisitions, the land bank. When the TUWG was started, I had wanted to ask that the land bank be subject to the same dog policies as in Ordinance 38 and the Parks Advisory Commission document. I since found out that nearly all the new acquisitions in Contra Costa County are subject to the Habitat Conservation Plan and similar measures in Alameda County. This is photos of the new acquisitions. So the HCP covenant is really very strict as far as recreation. It clearly says recreation is subordinate to biological goals. And even if they allow certain kinds of recreation, they can withdraw the privileges at any time. So dogs may, not will, but may be allowed in daylight hours in certain areas. They even limit picnic areas, and they have a whole section on how to keep the neighbors out and make sure residential neighbors maintain fences. So really, all these new acquisitions are going to be managed as preserves rather than parks. So just going back to this for a minute, these orange are the new acquisitions. And this whole region here, south and east of Black Diamond Mines, subject to the HCP. Vasco, addition to Vasco Caves and Byron Vernal Pools. I have no argument with that whatsoever. I don't think dogs belong near vernal pools. The Concord Naval Weapons Base, which will be Concord Hills, is not open, but planning's been done and dogs are going to be on leash. And about the only sizable areas of the new acquisitions that could allow off-leash dogs is this area along Palomares Road, which eventually hopefully will be attached to Pleasanton Ridge. So what would we like to see? Number one, I would like to see that the dog policies in Ordinance 38 be continued in the existing parks and in any land bank areas that are not covered by the HCP or other conservation instruments. Two, that the new acquisitions land bank that are covered by the HCP allow dogs on leash, except in the very sensitive areas. And three, that a recreation ombudsman or other representative be involved in the planning process at an early stage so that recreational interests are represented. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Great maps and
Thanks.
lots of great information. Emily, do you have a presentation, or are we? Yeah.
Just one quick wrap up, really. Amanda, I don't know if it's easier for me to share my screen or if you want to just share that final slide. Let me know.
Let me just make you co-host real quick.
Okay.
There you go.
Cool. Just one final thing here. And Kathy obviously shared such great information there. And so we just thought we'd kind of wrap up and just a couple of quick facts about, what a large community is out there with their dogs, and COVID, obviously had a huge impact on pet ownership. And so just, really, there's a lot of people out there that are hoping to use the parks with their dogs. And then just one fun thing to wrap up with here, one more user group that we didn't talk about is the people out there walking their cats. And so this is a cat that was adopted from the shelter I work at out there hiking in Pleasanton Ridge. So just thought that would be a fun thing to share.
Equal time for cats.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. That's great. All right. Well, that's a nice way to end the presentations. Thank you, all three of you, for giving us a lot to learn about and to feel your perspective. And I think the floor is open really for comments or questions, ideas that you have for making sure that dogs and their companions are, welcomed in the new parklands, and that trails are designed with those needs and behaviors, if you will, in mind. So any thoughts, reactions, reflections, ideas?
Hi, everyone. This is Simone. I just want to thank everyone for their presentations. So far, they've been so excellent today. But I guess I would like to second Kathy's idea for the recreation ombudsman for the planning process to, kind of represent recreational interests. I think that that's important. I mean, it's a large component of what the park district is set up to do. Also, I guess I wonder, maybe I'll kick off the thing that was not covered, but what's the opinion on, or are there any solutions that have been discovered for the dog poo on trail, the baggie leaving? I know that I'm not the only one that thinks that, and I've heard some interesting solutions about like where you leave the trash can. If you leave it further down the trail after the dogs will go, then, that might be, people might put it there, but, in some high use trails, I can't be the only one that has seeing a lot of the poo bags. I wish that wasn't a thing. So I figured I'd throw it out to the group.
Well, we've been working on education on that, and the professional dog walkers who feel very much at threat because their livelihood is threatened by people not liking those poo bags, they've really stepped up to be collecting them. I tried to get a photo of this one guy, Jerry Goodman, who was in that photo with Alan Love. He walks around, when he's walking his client dogs, he walks around with a See's candy bag that he fills full of poo bags. We weren't able to do it, but just go with the image, right? It's constant education. And there's some people who think that dogs will poop within 200 feet of a trailhead and that there should be more trash cans within that. I don't know. I don't think there's science to that, but it's worth trying.
Great.
I would only add that I'm not an expert on it, but the Be a Pup Pro campaign and program and education, that's really part of it as well, is trying to educate users that it's not just bagging it. You actually have to get rid of it too. Like just because the bag's compostable and now it's in a nice, it's the mentality that someone will be by to pick that up for me, right? Or maybe they're leaving it. I used to give people the benefit of the doubt. Oh, they're going to get it on their way out because they didn't want to carry it, right? All that, all that's going on in our heads. But so I mean, we've really tried a few other things. We've tried to let everyone know that there isn't a poop fairy, which is thought that was a funny, humorous way to get people's attention. So I hope it's getting better out there, but yeah, there's nothing worse than stepping on one of those bags.
Yeah, I tried to get Carol Johnson to do a poop fairy campaign where they were wearing little park district uniforms, the poop fairies were, but for some reason that didn't get traction. We're as baffled as you are. We work on education and shame. We like shame.
On the enforcement side, is that bagging it and just leaving it on the side, that doesn't meet the threshold. And if it is seen, it will be addressed by one of our officers. I have had numerous conversations of justification of why it's being done, but I always go back to that you may be ruining someone else's experience. So that's just what we use. But if it is seen, it will be addressed by our officers.
Okay, good.
Mary, this is Bonnie. I was wondering, does your group do any work with local shelters and humane societies that when someone does adopt an animal that they're given, like not a checklist, but some information about how to appropriately walk your dog in parks and such?
That might be a question for Emily, but there's been talk about having packages for people. So when they walk out, they have a list of the park district rules. In fact, we talked to Carol about that too. They have a list of rules. They have park district doggy bags. They have, what they need to get going, because one of the challenges, of course, is that there's a new dog person every day. And then, you're educating people constantly. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think we should have a little welcome package.
Yeah, I think one thing is that dog people, aside from Point Isabel and the professional dog walkers, are not really organized. Many of them are people who work during the day and go to the park at 5, and it's hard to reach them except one by one.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions? Any experiences that any of you have had on the trails, either positive or not so positive, with dogs and their companions that you'd like to share? Okay.
Sorry, Lou. I did want
Yeah,
to
sure.
say that one of, I don't want to belabor this, but if there's any comments on what dog walkers, I mean, our rules are very clear about controlling your dog and things, but one thing I've heard about two of the major user groups that is sometimes conflict around are equestrian horses and dogs. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on like suggestions or sort of suggestions on how to act in that situation, or suggestions for the park district.
Can I just jump in? I know I'm taking too much of the bandwidth, but when we talked several months ago about signs, I think the signs that have, who gives way to whom are hopeless. We need something a lot more clear. And we would like to do more pups and ponies, not necessarily with the park district police horses, but with individuals. If Gary or Amelia or anybody wants to help work with us on that, we would really love to get dogs more used to horses, and vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
That's a great idea, Mary. Mary, could you put your email in the chat? This is
Yep.
Gary. Thanks.
Hi, Linus Ugold, John Muir Land Trust. Just to say, our greatest challenge with dogs are dogs chasing cattle. So, it's sort of a different subject, but not acceptable. And occasionally, the very peculiar dog owner that brings their dog out to actually, I don't know what they're training them to, but to make them vicious, actually, and unleash them on cattle. We have photos and so forth. It's horrible to see, but that's something that should somehow be addressed as well. It's very difficult for the grazers to deal with that.
Yeah.
Well, I heard about that in the PAC meetings, but I think that's really a criminal act. I think that takes it out of the realm of recreational dog walkers, and I think that person was.
I agree, Kathy. I think it's the exception, and yeah, it's very much on the margin. But every dog has that instinct, including my poodle mix and so forth. Once they get going, so it is something to be aware of. That if they start chasing, that somehow that's a rule that owners should recognize.
I comment on that real quick. I want to thank Linus for bringing it up. And that is something that we use cattle in the park district is a fire prevention measure. They are out there grazing our lands to prevent the fuel load. And so 2 years ago, the board actually changed Ordinance 38, which prohibits the chasing of cattle in the park. So if you allow your dog in, I think that some of the comments that we got was that they didn't think that they were going to hurt the cattle, but we wanted to make sure that didn't even become an issue. So you're not allowed to have your dogs off leash when in the area of cattle grazing, or actually any of our animals that we graze, because we also graze sheep and goats in the parks to manage the fuel load.
Yeah, thank you. Amelia, you've got your hand up. Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, was that, did you call on me? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Hi, yeah. We have participated in the past when I was on the volunteer mounted patrol. Zena Mirsky and I participated for 5 years in a program called Partners on the Trail, dog and horse desensitization programs once a month in Redwood Park, and it was very worthwhile. The folks who participated in such a program were never going to be the problem people that equestrians encounter on trails. There's an enormous range of behaviors and levels of education among the many dog guardians who are out with their dogs, and it's only the extreme bad actors who are problematic. I rode in Walnut Creek not too long ago, and we encountered only nice, responsible dog walkers there, but in some of our urban parks where there are more ill-trained pit bulls, or as someone was saying, dogs that are perhaps being trained to be aggressive, that's a problem, especially when you get a pack mentality. If you've got a bunch of off-leash dogs running together, whether they know each other or not, we've seen cases. This actually happened with a police horse, and one dog went for the jugular, the other went to hamstring the dog's haunches, and the officer came off, and it was bad. I've known a couple of cases where horses have been badly injured. Part of this is cluelessness. Part of it is negligence, and it's a relatively rare thing, but oddly enough, when we did our unscientific survey of our equestrian forum online, just about as many folks had problems with off-leash dogs as had with bicycles, but all the comments were about bicycles, not so much about the dogs. I think it's because a lot of bad dog behavior toward horses is cluelessness and inability to control rather than overt negligence. So it's an ongoing situation. I'm glad Gary and TWHA are interested in doing more dog-horse desensitization programs, but it's the extreme cases, like with the cattle, that are driving the park rules about off-leash dogs, that and habitat considerations like the least terns and the plovers who need to be protected. So that's all. Thanks.
Yeah, great points. Great points, Amelia. Thank you so much for those comments. Any other thoughts about dog use in the parks and or dog presence in the parks and on the trails? Just want to appreciate again all of the resources that have been brought to help us understand the perspectives this morning. Mary and Amy or Emily and Kathy. Thank you. You know, it's an ongoing, I feel your ongoing presence and participation in making things work better on the parks. So thank you for that. Well, you know, obviously there's plenty of opportunity even outside these meetings to send us your comments or questions as it relates to the topics that we've been covering. And I know I don't think anybody would mind if we closed a little early today. We had extended these meetings to 2.5 hours because we felt like there was so much to cover, and we wanted to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak and have their perspectives shared. So I think we can start to close. If anybody has a burning desire, just speak up or put your hand up and drop something in the chat. But just in terms of getting us to our next set of meetings, we have our next one scheduled for August 5th and our final one scheduled for September 16th. And the business that we have to take care of in those two meetings is really to kind of wrap things up by way of determining what are the potential strategies or solutions that this group would like to recommend going forward for new trail development that can help to optimize the experience for the users, the different user groups and folks, protect the resources, the natural resources that the district is also, good stewardship practices there, and minimize conflicts. So to help us with wrapping all of this up, we are going to be preparing a synthesis of all the comments and ideas that have surfaced in the discussions, both the small group discussions, the plenary conversations. I think many of the presenters have in the course of their presentations offered their own ideas for solutions. And so those have also been really helpful. And we'll be synthesizing all that and presenting that to you as a series of summary points, and also as a set of potential recommendations. And so in the next 2 meetings, we hope that everybody will participate in evaluating those potential recommendations, indicating, and we'll describe this more for you, but indicating your level of support for each of the potential recommendations, whether it's something that you are fully supportive of, or whether you're sort of lukewarm about, but think it's worth keeping on the table, so to speak, or any ideas that come forward that you are really not in favor of and would not like to see included in the set of recommendations. So essentially some levels of support for these ideas that have come up. I think outside of the specific solutions or policy not policy recommendations, but practice recommendations for new trails, I think we can all agree that this working group process has been extremely enlightening. It's been a broad cross-section of interests and perspectives that we've had here. And so we definitely want to highlight, for those to whom this report will be directed, that the working group process has provided a lot of education, information, and networking, as we continue to see today, people connecting with one another to look at shared issues. So all of that to say that the next 2 meetings should be really interesting as we try to bring ourselves to a set of recommendations to advance. And Devin or Brian, I don't know if you wanted to add to that commentary, give us a sense of what comes next, and then we'll close with our member announcements section, just to give everybody an opportunity to hear about upcoming events and activities going on around the district. So Devin, I'll let you.
Yeah, thank you, Lou, for that summary. I wanted to mention to everyone that the August 5th meeting, the first hour, we have a set of presentations from the diverse communities of our working group and of our area. So we have one more set of perspective presentations and discussion to happen. So that'll be the first hour in August. And then the second hour and a half, and then the full September meeting will be our synthesis. And Lou and I are preparing some documents to send to you all before August so that you can consider those things. So I just wanted to mention we'll have one more set of presentations in August. And I really appreciate all of the sort of camaraderie of this group, especially shown today, and just the excitement of partnering and partnerships. And if that can live on after our last September meeting, then I think we'll all feel as staff that we've really accomplished something. So Lou.
Great. This is the part of the agenda where we invite anybody that's got something exciting or active going on in their group that you'd like everybody to know about. If there's a special trail event happening, a training, anything going on that you'd like to share with the group. So, it's, summertime, high use time on the trails. Nothing. Tim.
Lou, there's a question as to whether there's a deadline for feeding thoughts to the staff before the synthesis.
Thanks, Maria. I see that from Mary. Okay, that disappeared. Let's see. We hadn't discussed that. I think we can certainly receive your ideas and thoughts up to the August 5th meeting. And perhaps even at the August 5th meeting, there will be some new things. But we would like to start to, kind of contain things by that August 5th meeting. So we'll communicate as we send out the draft. We'll let you know, that process in more detail. But I think, certainly maybe one of your ideas or thoughts that you wanted to contribute might show up in that document. So, but I'm going to say, Mary, and for everybody, once you've seen this document, and if there are some outstanding things that you would like to propose to be included, then we can incorporate those. I'd say a deadline shortly after the August 5th meeting, so that we can make the September meeting a kind of a coming together and evaluating our list of recommendations. Does that sound right, Devin or Brian? Yeah.
That sounds good. And I think, as you can sort of hear, I think we're sort of, taking off and evaluating kind of how we're gonna pull this all. So I think, getting the input in, and then yeah, we'll look towards, targeting that towards September. We'll kind of see how it all comes together as we get all the information. So that sounds right.
Can I ask, so who should we direct if we have a thought or an email to send? Who should we direct it to?
I would send them over to Devin, and you should have Devin's email. Just feel free to forward them to him. I know I often get communications, so I share all that information with Devin and Sean. Sean gets stuff, so there's multiple avenues to the Park District, and don't be shy, because I guarantee of your other working group members are not shy in communicating as well. So please feel free to share your comments.
Simone, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I did. I have two things. One of them is that the Ridge Trail, we have a segment on Doug McConnell's open roads. And I think that it does feature a section of the future Guerin to Niles Trail, if I'm not mistaken, which is an East Bay Parks Trail that we're hoping will open in the next year or so, pending some permits. Thank you, Trails team, Suzanne, shout out. And so we're really excited to be sharing that. I think we're having a viewing party. If anyone is interested in joining us in Berkeley at the Gilman Brewery to check it out. But if not, we hope that you catch it on the open road segment. And then also the Ridge Trail is hiring. We are trying to find an addition to our trail program team. So that would be either trail director or trail program manager. So if you guys know of anyone good, please send them our way. Yeah.
Thanks, Simone. Yeah, good. Okay. Any other announcements, comments, questions for staff, etc.? If not, then we're about 15 minutes ahead of schedule, which is nice. Thanks again, everybody, for your attention, your participation, and really great discussion and conversation, and again, great presentations, lots of great information. We will, as always, document today's activities and discussions. There'll be a set of notes developed. Maria's been taking notes on the mural. And between that and the recordings, so those record, I don't know how many of you are going back and listening in, but we have really thorough documentation of the conversations we've had. And in addition, the chat is available that has a lot of links in it. So, great information shared through that method as well. I think with that, Devin, I'll turn it back to you to close, and we'll see you all on August 5th.
Okay, everyone, thank you. Thank you to our presenters and to all of you. Hope you have a good, restful couple of weeks, and we'll see you in August. Bye-bye.